China's economic retaliatory measures on Korea are only escalating by the day, and given heavy economic reliance on Korea has on China, concerns over the impact on the local economy is mounting. For more on how much this is affecting Seoul, our economic correspondent Shin Se-min joins us in the studio. Se-min, good to have you with us.
Always a pleasure.
Well, first of all, let's begin by taking a closer look at some of the impact we are feeling from China's actions. Of course, China has not officially made any statements relating to it, but we can feel it, don't we?
Of course, the most evident impact can be seen on the streets of Seoul. Now, by that, what I mean is, especially in shopping districts like Myeongdong and some of the tourist sites like royal palaces, where it used to be jam-packed with a lot of Chinese tourists, are now seeing some differences these days. The Cultural Heritage Administration says that the daily average number of visitors to ancient palaces in Seoul had plunged by over 35% in the first 5 days this month, compared to the same period the month before. And a local hotel in Seoul saw its booking ratio by Chinese tourists slip to 20 to 30% from its average 40%. But then again, it's still too early to tell. We're going to be able to see a full-scale impact of Beijing's apparent retaliatory measures starting from the 15th of this month, exactly a week away from today, that is. And that's because that's the day the Chinese Tourism Administration had ordered its travel agencies to stop selling trips to Korea. And mind you, these tourists had made up for about 60 to 70% of sales from duty-free shops in Seoul last year. So we're looking at a substantial amount of losses.
And also reeling from the spiteful measures from China is, of course, Korean businesses having any relations with China.
That's right. Across the mainland in China, already a number of Lotte Mart offline stores have shut down, and that number is only increasing by the day. According to Lotte Group, the branches of Lotte Mart in China have been closed as they failed to comply with fire safety regulations, some of which came into effect just a couple of days after China's Xinhua News Agency reported that the THAAD deployment could, quote-unquote, turn into a nightmare for Lotte. And this specific retaliation on Lotte Group comes as they have swapped their golf course for its THAAD deployment, a location for the THAAD deployment.
Well, China is anything but subtle when it comes to expressing their anger towards Korea. So with these apparent economic restrictions ratcheting up, Semina, how big of a fallout are we expecting?
Well, though it's still too early to tell in its stages, a local economic research institute said today that if China were to kick these measures into higher gear, it's going to cost about $15 billion for Korea. The IBK Economic Research Institute said that THAAD impact could pull down the nation's growth rate by 1.07 percentage points. It added that Korea's economy may be faced with a 0.59% on-year drop of its annual GDP, or nearly $7.7 billion of losses. This if Korea ends up losing about half of its Chinese tourists on an annual basis. And a separate report by Credit Suisse says something similar. It predicts some $7.3 billion of losses and 0.53% on-year drop of its annual GDP. But these measures are just based on the assumption that only Korea's exports to China and the country's local tourism businesses are hit by the retaliatory measures. So, and these are just an estimate, so we have to wait and see how we have a better picture of some of these fallouts.
Well, China does have the power and experience to carry out these retaliatory measures and, as you mentioned, shift into higher